Okay, and we're recording. All right. Happy Wednesday. It's the last Wednesday of the month. So I sent out the email late. Sorry, I meant to send it out a little earlier so that you would have a chance to read the blog, but maybe you did or didn't have time to do that. But I did a little research on that statement that James Nestor had said in that book, Breath, which I thought was so stunning at first when he said that you could breathe yourself into osteoporosis. And I was like, what? And he writes a little bit about the chemistry of it that's happening in the pH in the body. And I had to do more research on what that was all about. And so, I've always talked about how yoga supports, not only for the stimulation of the skeletal system from the forces that we're putting ourselves in with gravitational forces we're balancing against, but it's also building balance and building range of motion and proprioception. So it's kind of keeping us in a situation that will help to reduce fracture risk, because fractures are usually caused from falling, correct? And hopefully keep us from falling or regain our step easily if we trip. And then the other benefit I always said was from yoga with the breathing is that it brings us into more of a parasympathetic nervous system, which allows the body to be more in rest and digest state, which would allow us to absorb the nutrients that we have. So I always felt like that was the big piece of yoga for breathing piece that brought to osteoporosis. But looking into this whole thing about the blood pH, what James Nestor says is that when we're trying to breathe, like if we're running or trying to get more oxygen, we think we need to breathe faster and bring in more air. But what they've proven is that we actually have to breathe slower and hold the exhale a little bit longer so that the carbon dioxide builds up in the body, so that when you do bring the oxygen in, it somehow, I'm not entirely clear on the chemistry of this, but somehow it attaches to the oxygen levels and makes it more absorbable into the body. The oxygen is more effective in the body with the higher CO2 level. And that comes from a slower breathing. But he says in general, we're all just breathing kind of shallow, fast breathing. And we tend to be in this sort of heightened state. This goes to the parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system. When we're in a sympathetic state, like we're that's the fight or flight, or hide kind of, freeze or whatever they call it. That state where your breathing is short and shallow. But then he talks about how that affects the blood pH, and the blood pH from a slow breathing state, since it increases carbon dioxide, is going to actually make the blood pH a little bit more acidic. We're trying to keep blood pH at 7.4, which is a little bit more alkaline. It's going to lower the blood pH to be more acidic. But what your body automatically does is that, you breathe a little bit faster, and it kind of clears that out and it brings it back to the neutral state. But if you're breathing too shallow, you're getting more in the alkaline state, and that can go on for quite a long time. And when that's happening, the body automatically has to buffer to bring the alkaline system more into an acidic state, whatever, it's all this balance stuff, right? And so your kidneys kind of kick in, and it draws out minerals from your body. And when it draws out minerals from your body, it starts to bring minerals from your bone into the bloodstream, because we need minerals for a whole bunch of metabolic things happening on the cellular level. So this can, be an extenuating circumstance. So if you're breathing shallow for a really long period of time, you're basically depleting minerals from your body. Fascinating. And so yoga, once again, has another benefit to our bones in that we practice breathing. We practice being conscious of our breath. We practice breathing through our nose, which is more effective too, he brings out in the book, than just our mouth. And we breathe slowly. So we're bringing, in the regular rest of our life, it's not like you have to breathe really slowly through the entire day, but for the most part, we're breathing kind of shallow and normal and whatever. But if we can take a moment to breathe deeply, we're bringing that balance back into state, and we're not, stimulating the bones to release their calcium into the body as much. It's just one more of those triggers. There's so many triggers in our body that can wreak havoc on our bones. So that's the gist of the blog, but you can read the blog if you haven't already. Okay. So we're going to start. We're going to practice more today using yoga as the body strengthening poses, but also integrating sort of these motions that I sort of call like tricks to breathing. So you're using the pose and then motions in the pose to focus on your breathing. So you have sort of a kinesthetic relationship to how far you're breathing, the inhales and the pause, and the exhales and the pause. Okay. So some of you just got all nice and cozy seated down, but I wanted to start standing. Sorry. So we can start.